Welcome back to Politics Headquarters on News Central Television. It's now time for us to switch gears to developments in Adamawa State. We'll be looking at the governorship election fallout with Samson Adegoyega, a legal practitioner and public analyst. Now, Samson, let's get straight to it. Can you explain in detail the events that led to the controversy surrounding the declaration of Senator Aisha Binani Dahiru as the winner of the Adamawa governorship election?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I don't think anybody can really state for a fact what's really transpired to the declaration of the APC gubernatorial candidate by the rep of the Adamawa INEC office, because basically it was as if there was a controversy that happened and the rep decided to take it upon himself, usurping the power of the returning officer to make a declaration while collation was still ongoing. So basically, to the viewers and everybody that has been observing, we really cannot say for a fact what made the rep take such a decision, knowing full well that he has no power under the act, that's the Electoral Act, to make such a declaration. And that brings us to the issue of the Chief Aisha Binani, who asks that the court restrain INEC from nullifying that declaration.
Yes, just to add to that, she filed an ex parte motion, and
yes,
the APC before the Federal High Court seeking a judicial review work. What does this mean, and what are the potential outcomes? Knowing that as we speak, INEC has declared Governor Fintiri as the winner of that election that happened earlier today. Does it change anything? Yes.
By our acts, she has actually decided, she has created a little bit of a fulcrum, and there's a major problem. We have to be very honest, because as it states right now, or as it is right now, there are two governor-elects of Adamawa State. Now, if you look at Section 149 of the Electoral Act 2022, it states that any act that is done by any officer of INEC is deemed to be valid, except it is declared invalid by a competent court. Now, the declaration...
So even INEC's declaration that... sorry to interrupt you there. INEC came out specifically a few hours later and said, look, disregard this result, is null and void. Are you saying that even INEC's pronouncement...
That's the problem, actually. So INEC cannot now turn around to say that disregard this result, because INEC is not a court of competent jurisdiction. Section 149 of the Electoral Act states that it is only a court of competent jurisdiction, or a tribunal, that can effectively invalidate an action that is done by an electoral officer. Any electoral officer, that is what the Act states. So now she's right in going to court to ask the court to review whether or not Section 149 affects our declaration at this point in time.
But looking at the morality of it, and knowing that the rest of the Electoral Commissioner is not the one that is charged with the constitutional responsibility of announcing results, she still went ahead to make, she actually gave an acceptance speech and all of that. So do you find her complicit in all of the drama that ensued over the weekend? Now that
yes, I do. Yes. I do find that complicit. However, there is a clear distinction between a moral wrong and a legal wrong. Now, the rep is morally wrong to have done what he had done, but by the nature or the provisions of the Electoral Act, it has validated his action. So they are actually exploiting a loophole within the Electoral Act. That's what I see it as, because the Act was specific. 149 of the Electoral Act was very specific and clear, saying that whatever is done by any electoral officer, notwithstanding any provision of the law, is deemed to be valid until it is invalidated by a court or a tribunal of competent jurisdiction. And that's why you see the reason why the court refused to entertain an ex parte application was because the court was asking them to address it on the issue of jurisdiction. Does the Federal High Court has jurisdiction over such a matter? That was the question that the court is asking. But the provision of the law is clear. It's very clear.
Earlier today, the Inspector General, INEC did ask the Inspector General of Police to prosecute the resident electoral commissioner in Adamawa State, Hudu Yunusa, that declared illegally the APC gubernatorial candidate, Aisha Binani Dahiru, as the winner of the polls, and, prosecute him to the full extent of the law. What does this new development bring to the dynamics of all of this? Does it make the case easier for the APC or the PDP?
Okay, so it shows to a large extent that the declaration by the REC was done illegally, and that INEC does not support the illegality. However, it has created a lacuna that needs to be properly put to bed by the judiciary. We cannot continue to have this action hanging without it being properly dissected and reviewed by a court of competent jurisdiction. Now, does it make it easier for that declaration to be overturned? Yes, it does. Because once it goes to the tribunal, the INEC as well as the PDP will only state that this declaration was wrong. But as it stands right now, is the declaration still proper? Yes, I would say so, as it stands. So right now, what we have...
But then we have another declaration by the constituted authority.
So you have two declarations now. The question is now, what declaration stands? That is why we need the court.
Yeah, but there was a declaration without a breakdown of, local government figures and all of that, and how the candidate emerged. And there was just another declaration, this person has won the election. So is this still up for debate? Is it still something that the court needs to look?
Yes, it is still up for debate.
Because to any ordinary person that is watching, they know what happened was illegal. So why do you still need the courts to go through all that process to interpret what people might consider as, daylight, black and white?
Thank you very much. A law remains a law until it is repealed or interpreted a competent court. Now, 149, which Binani will be relying upon, clearly states that any act done by any officer, it didn't specify which of the officers. So that provision of the law itself is exposed to interpretation. Proper jurisdiction determines the provision, then this lacuna will still be exploited in the nearest future. Now, like I said, illegality and immorality are not always at conjoined twins at all the times. There are times whereby there are two separate lines that do not cross. Was the declaration illegal? Yes. But until that declaration is deemed to be illegal and overturned by a tribunal or a court, it still remains standing.
Okay, now
as clear as...
go ahead, sorry. Please, Samson. Yes.
Yes. It is as clear as day. So what would advise either INEC or PDP to do is to seek to join that suit Binani has filed before the court, so that they can also argue at that point whether or not the declaration was done properly. That is the only thing. All the way to the tribunal, because as it stands right now, we do not even know who is the governor-elect. And that is coming from a professional point of view.
Interesting developments in Adamawa State indeed. Now, what will the PDP camp be doing right now? Because as this evening, the returning officer did declare Governor Fintiri as the duly elected governor of Adamawa State. But you say, look, it's not yet Uhuru and they can't go home and sleep with two eyes. So looking at the events and everything we know now, what should the PDP camp in Adamawa State be doing?
Thankfully, the court refused to entertain the expert's application because the court wanted to know whether or not he had jurisdiction to entertain such a suit. Now that it has been through open for interpretation, I would suggest and advise that the PDP as well as INEC join to be joined us in that suit, so that they can also argue as to the validity or legality of such a suit.
Now, how do you think the outcome, I mean, I know the ex parte motion was thrown out because they were still talking about issues of jurisdiction, but how do you think the outcome of the judicial review being sought by Senator Binani and the APC would impact the Adamawa governorship elections, and what implications could it have for Nigerian politics as a whole? What precedents could it set?
It would actually set a very okay. So let's start with the first question. What would the interpretation be? The thing is that, like I said, Section 149 was an avenue that nobody thought of before now, but it's going to set a very dangerous precedent. Meaning anybody can pronounce election results and would want to ride on that 149, saying that since the person is an officer of INEC, then it should be deemed as correct at any time. So it creates a precedent that should not be followed, because it would open the floodgates to numerous of problems and litigation in the future. I would want to believe that the court would not want to give room for such a Pandora box to be opened. The court will be very, very skeptical about releasing. But if the court is to follow the letters of the Electoral Act, the court will hold that the pronouncement by the reg is deemed to be legal until overturned at the tribunal. So, and if that pronouncement comes or that ruling comes, then I am very afraid that elections going forward will be marred with so many frivolous pronouncements, because it simply means that anybody can be either under duress or coerced into making a pronouncement, knowing full well that, okay, we'll go to court. So it's a dangerous precedent that would be set. I would want this, the court would have to take that position of social engineering to see how it can actually adequately address and interpret this provision of the law to ensure that democracy itself is not endangered.
Very important point. Then looking at INEC also, I wonder what the process is, because a resident electoral commissioner is not a junior staff of INEC. And so how do they choose this? How do they make this appointment? What's the vetting process like? Because Hudu Yunusa Ani has just thrown spanners into the works of INEC. How can, looking into the future, how can INEC better engage and vet those it hires in such sensitive positions so that they're not compromised and we don't have this sort of situation wasting the court's time and wasting people's time? And it also has the propensity to cause violence in some states, because this is a very serious issue. So who takes the blame? INEC says Mr. Hudu Yunusa Ari was acting on his own and they've distanced themselves from him. So who takes the blame for his action?
So we really cannot say for a fact, as we do not know what transpired in that setting. Like we are all observers, we all heard the news at the same time. So we do not really know what really happened. And I do not want to presumptuously blame the rep, because we do not know the reason why he felt or he decided to take such an authorized action by abrogating to himself the powers of the returning officer. Because I think that would have to be when it comes to trial, you have to explain himself as to why he has done that. But going forward, I think it is very clear that INEC needs to be up and doing while vetting the staffs that he has, because it simply means that what they have done so far is not enough. But we need to understand that it's a Nigerian thing, and compromise usually happens where you least expect it to happen. So we need to understand that until the Nigerian mentality itself changes and shifts into that of proper nation building and not building of individual interests, then we will continue to have this problem, even if INEC decide that they don't want to use professors anymore and they only want to use clergymen and DBS. They will still have the same problems every day. So we need to understand that going forward. We need to understand that Nigeria needs to shift from the mentality of self-interest into a national impact, whereby we decide and demand that it is the nation first before my selfish interest. So until we have that mentality, as a whole, we will continue to have the same problems.
Now, Samson, before we conclude our conversation tonight, I would like to ask you this question. How will this incident affect the credibility and integrity of the electoral process in Nigeria? And what can be done to restore the people's confidence in the electoral system? Because before this incident happened, a lot of Nigerians were already not satisfied with the conduct of INEC in the general election. So what's the way forward?
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So before this incident happened, like you rightly said, the faith and confidence in the Nigerian Electoral Commission, the Independent National Electoral Commission, had been damaged and bashed, and people have lost total confidence in it. This one is more like trying to tell them that, okay, this is what we've been saying. How do we move ahead going forward? I think while we're bashing INEC, we need to also understand and give them a little bit of a tap at the back or a clap at the back, saying that they did a good job in a way. The beavers in itself reduced the potentials for inflation of figures. If you look at the figures, the electoral figures of this year and the previous ones we'll be having, you will see that there is a very sharp decline. And people would want to say that it's because of voters' apathy. I will say that is not true. Because this year, people were more interested in election than ever before. I observed it myself. So it simply means that those figures that they've been getting out of the thin air is now being streamlined. And that is in itself a plus to INEC. It simply means that INEC will need to do better. And how do you do better? By employing the good things of technologies, innovative ideas that would stop the propensity for violence on election day. That will stop the propensity of people having to change figures, to rewrite things. If you have all these things done electronically, operated electrically, it
will reduce
a semblance of transparency. That's the word, of transparency. We have a transparent system, then confidence is restored in INEC. Until then, we will still keep having the same problems. People are afraid and scared of what INEC has done.
Thank you very much, Samson Adegoyega Newton. It's been a pleasure speaking with you on Politics Headquarters.
Thank you very much for having us.
Your contribution. Thank you.